When I was a little girl, my brother, who was 5 years older than me and who felt robbed of his place to be the baby of the family, he terrorized me constantly. And when he did, my parents always said to me to forgive him. And so, of course, I didn't want to because I knew he was going or he was likely to continue his abusive behavior toward me. Behavior I never understood. I figured he ought to love me like everybody else loved me and be kind to me and be a big brother like my other two brothers were and kind of show me the ropes and how to live life and, all those kinds of things. But he terrorized me. I grew up with that experience even before I knew the word terror and terrorized. I share that story because it reminds me in a small way of the story of Joseph from the book of Genesis in the Bible. Joseph was beloved by his parents and hated by his brothers. Their hate for him was so deep till the oldest brother devised a plan to throw the brother to throw Joseph into a pit and let him die there. And then they said, one of the other brothers said, no, that maybe that's too harsh. Why don't we instead sell him into slavery? And that was what the brothers did. And you'd think out of, a baseball team full of brothers, somebody would have said, no, he's not done anything to hurt us. And actually, he has some gifts that could be valuable for us. And don't we have some kind of love for our little brother? But that didn't happen. And so Joseph was sold into slavery. And in the course of that, the hardship, the pain, the imprisonment, on and on that he experienced lasted for years. Until someone he met in prison remembered, oh, that dude I met has some really great gifts for interpreting dreams. He understood this spiritual gift that Joseph had. And in the course of the Pharaoh needing help, this individual who had been in prison with Joseph said, I think you really ought to talk with this dude. I think he can help. And so Joseph was summoned from prison and he was able to interpret the Pharaoh's dreams. And in the course of that was able to help spare not only Egypt, but the surrounding region, spare them of death because this great famine came and swept across that whole Mesopotamian area. So, of course, as the stories go, his brothers also impacted by famine and his father impacted by famine. The brothers came because it was in Egypt where there was grain, there was food because of all of what Joseph, who had been sold into slavery, was able to interpret the dream and then warehouse the kinds of sustenance they would need as the famine was about to come, and then it really hit. Now, perhaps you understand I'm sharing this story because of the absolute betrayal that so many people are experiencing, the hardships that have begun and are yet emerging in the lives of many people. The whole notion of people being unwelcome and imprisoned and used as slaves and on and on and on. So much from Joseph's story. is what is happening not only in the US now, but because of the particular absolutely chaotic and drastic and inhumane policies being put in place. And some would say unconstitutional, but if you completely ignore a constitution, how can it be unconstitutional? So all of these things are happening, impacting the lives of so many people, whether individuals have gifts or not that could be used to bless the lives of many. So Joseph, when it came time, despite all the hardship he had been through and the harsh treatment he had experienced, not to mention the betrayal by his brothers, somehow he found it within his heart to forgive them. Now, many of us would say, that ain't me. That's a nice story, Joseph and his brother. But no, I ain't even trying to have that kind of approach. And I don't know what each of us may do, but what I do know is hardship and betrayal are not the end of the story. That's why I love that story so much. I often say to people that when we meet individuals or even look at our own lives, we're looking at snapshots, but our lives are really more like a movie. And the ways we intersect with one another, it's all of these movies coming together, and it can feel in a snapshot that we look at in the course of our life as individuals, as families, as nations. It can feel like that's the whole story, but it's not. Some of you may know that in December, I had a new tattoo added to my collection of tattoos, and this one is right here over my heart. And there's a heart. I'll show you a little piece of it. But anyway, there's a heart, and then the words in there say, love wins. So this time of terror, this time of complete inhumane treatment, this time of greed and backstabbing, and you can name thing after thing after thing. It's ineffable because none of the words we speak can fully capture how ugly this time is that we're going through and the impact on real people's lives within the US and internationally. But it's not the end of the story. Now, I don't know what it was like for Joseph when he was in prison and the thoughts perhaps running through his mind at times. My brothers, my own brothers, did this to me. I've been talking with different people about things that I've been anticipating, and people have said to me, "Oh, I don't think he or they would do that." And I say, "Okay, well, each of us has the right to be in denial or stay in fantasy thinking or whatever we believe helps us move across this experience with more ease and comfort." But I like to be realistic. And Maya Angelou always said, people tell you who they are. Believe them. And so it is incumbent upon the folks who are in leadership, as we recognize that all branches of government are in a particular or under a particular control right now, and how scary that can be for so many of us. The thing that gives me peace, two things that give me peace. And that doesn't mean I don't get mad, but I have peace also. The two things that give me peace, one is I know it's not the end of the story because love does win. And the other thing that gives me peace is none of those people are the author or the finisher of my life. That belongs to my creator and my creator alone. And I'll probably tell this story another time because I love this one so much as well. And that is a story later in it's another biblical story of exile. And perhaps you've heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the fiery furnace was turned up really hot. They were thrown in there because they would not worship the Pharaoh. And they turned the furnace up 7 times hotter than they usually did. Such that even, and here's the interesting part, even those who were throwing them into the fire, they were burned alive. But these guys were not burned alive. They were able to be in that fire and they were walking around and then they were like, the folks was, wait a minute, didn't we throw 3? I see 4 because an angel or ancestor, however you understand that story, came in and was walking around with them, and that was their protector. And what I am amazed about by that story, and I love it, and I've experienced it in my life as well, is that when they came out of the fire that folks thought would kill them, the text says there wasn't even the smell of smoke on them. And so perhaps you're going through something personally right now that is directed by all of these changes happening that the administration is making, or it might be something with your family or with your health or whatever it might be, to keep trusting in your creator. No one else. They might have the power to make life absolutely difficult, but no one else has the power to take your faith or your strength or your power. That's yours. Hold on to it and make sure you gather with people who can support you in that process, because this is not a sprint that we're in. This is like running a marathon, and you got to have the right tools, the right stride, all of that, the right equipment and resources to get through it, but we will. So that's all I want to say. I've gone way over my time, but I'm glad you're here. And not even the smell of smoke once we come out, but to remember while we're in that fiery furnace, the very one who sustains your life is journeying with you. Amen.